Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi and you're watching a special broadcast of top stories from the studios here in the National Capital Region. Like always, every time, this is your one-stop shop to get a grasp, to catch the news pulse of the day, ladies and gentlemen. We have an expansive long list of stories for you to cover, and we will be shifting our focus to what's happening vis-a-vis all the presidential elections across the world, some political developments back at home, some climate change stories from the world of entertainment and sports as well. But first and foremost, we're almost at the brink of ringing in the new year, 2024. What does the new year have in store for you? Our next segment on that. Cutting across to the United States first. On Tuesday, the Colorado Supreme Court disqualified former President Donald Trump from the state's presidential election ballot in 2024. This due to his involvement in the January 6, 2021 riots on the Capitol Hill by his particular supporters. Now, this historic ruling under a rarely used provision of the U.S. Constitution marks Donald Trump as the first presidential candidate deemed ineligible for the White House due to engaging in quote-unquote insurrection or rebellion.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6, 2021 was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election.
And we are here because Trump claims, after all that, he has the right to be president again. But our Constitution, our shared charter of our nation, says he cannot do so.
Now, with Trump's disqualification carried out under the American Constitution's Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, also referred to as the Insurrection Clause. Let's understand what this Insurrection Clause actually is all about. Now, this clause bars anyone from the Congress, the military, and the federal and state offices who once took an oath to uphold the Constitution, but then engaged in insurrection or rebellion against it. Now, amid Trump's ouster, Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy has vowed to pull out from the Colorado ballot if the state's Supreme Court does not let Donald Trump contest. Taking a look at Ramaswamy's Twitter post as well, he also urged his counterparts Ron DeSantis, Chris Christie and Nikki Haley to do the same immediately, adding that if they didn't, they are tactically endorsing this illegal maneuver which will have disastrous consequences for America.
They have just tried to bar President Trump from the Colorado ballot using an unconstitutional maneuver that is a bastardization of the 14th Amendment to our U.S. Constitution. This was a provision, Section 3, that was designed to bar Confederate members, people who switched to the Confederacy, from actually being able to serve. That's very different than what's at issue here, to say the least. This is a hollowed out husk of what the country was built on. The basic principle that we, the people, select our leadership, not the unelected elite class in the back of palace halls. That's old world Europe, not the United States. That's why I'm making a pledge today that I will withdraw, I pledge to withdraw from the Colorado GOP primary ballot unless and until Trump's name is restored. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie and Nikki Haley do the same thing, or else these Republicans are simply complicit in this unconstitutional attack on the way we conduct our constitutional republic. I refuse to be complicit in that. I think what they're doing is wrong, and I think it's up to Republicans to step up and stand up with a spine for our country's future. That's really what's at stake, whether we, the people, actually have a say in deciding who leads this country. Yes, it would be easier for other Republicans like me who are running in this race to say, hey, if Trump is sidelined, there's our opportunity. No doubt other candidates are probably privately celebrating with their corporate sponsors. That's not the right thing to do. I think the most useful thing that every GOP candidate can do right now is to join me in that pledge I'll say that I will withdraw from that Colorado GOP primary ballot until Trump's name is restored. This belongs to the people, not to the unelected Democratic cabal of judges in Colorado or any other state. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley and Chris Christie do the same thing, or else they're complicit in what this security state is trying to do to shut down Trump. I stand by that, and I expect them to do the right thing.
Meanwhile, the 4-3 ruling is temporarily on hold until the 4th of January, awaiting a potential appeal to the United States Supreme Court. Now, with the legal battles clouding Trump's 2024 prospects after the Colorado SC blocks the ballot placement pending U.S. Supreme Court appeal, the state ruling impacting the campaign demands resolution by the 5th of January for the GOP primary list. All of this is clouding the road ahead for Donald Trump. What are the implications for 2024? Well, we're placing that for you on our screens. The federal judge has scheduled March 4th, 2024 for the election subversion trial, prompting Trump's criticism as well. Georgia's indictment also adds potential 4th 2024 trial for Donald Trump, casting uncertainty on his political future. Prosecutors are seeking another 2024 trial, raising questions about Trump's lead amid all the legal woes that he has to deal with at the moment. And moving on, French lawmakers gave their final approval to a contested bill that toughens rules for immigrants on Tuesday, giving President Emmanuel Macron a policy victory that nonetheless exposed cracks in his centrist majority.
Voici le résultat du scrutin. Votant 563 et la séance est suspendue.
The bill that we propose is one that has the merit to propose 27 articles that has allowed this regularization of undocumented workers. And I am proud to be the only interior minister of the only government of the only president that will put into the Republic's law the regularization of all those who do not have their papers and who are working in our country.
Vous avez dit pendant des mois, des semaines et des années que vous me voteriez.
And while shifting our focus here, Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed senior defense officials, stating that Russia is enhancing its nuclear arsenal and maintaining peak readiness of its strategic forces. He cited the West's engagement in what he termed a hybrid war against Russia as the impetus for these actions. Let's quickly listen in to what Russian President Vladimir Putin had to say.
Due to the changing character of military threats and as new military and political risks arise, the role of the nuclear triad has significantly increased. It ensures strategic balance of power in the world. Overall, the level of modern weaponry in the strategic nuclear forces has been brought up to 95%. When it comes to naval forces, it's almost at 100%. By the end of the year, 15 Yars and avant-garde missile complexes will be deployed for service. We need to continue maintaining combat readiness of the strategic forces at the highest level. All the approved goals in this area will be reached without a doubt.
Well, the Putin calls it West's hybrid war. Meanwhile, take a look what's happening on the other side of the fence. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy said at a press conference in Kiev that was held on Tuesday that he was confident that the United States would not betray their country by withholding crucial wartime funding.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy said at a press conference in Kyiv on Tuesday that he was confident the U.S. would not betray his country by withholding crucial wartime funding as Ukraine fights off a Russian invasion that's nearing the 2-year mark and showing no signs of abating.
We are working very hard on this, and I am certain the United States of America will not betray us, and that on which we agreed in the United States will be fulfilled completely.
In the U.S., aid for Ukraine has been held up by Republicans in Congress who say it must be paired with tougher immigration policies to bolster security at the U.S.-Mexico border. Senate leaders on Tuesday said a deal was not likely to come together soon. Here's Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
We've made important progress, but negotiations have not been easy, and it's going to take more time.
One senior Democrat in the Senate said any action would probably be postponed until January. The White House has warned that if not renewed, funding will run out by the end of December. Zelensky said financial assistance was key to Ukraine's defenses and that the nation didn't just need money but manpower. He said the military had requested as many as 500,000 citizens to be mobilized into the army, though a final decision had not yet been made.
But there's another angle at play over here as well, because with the war in Ukraine nearly 2 years old now, mental health now represents a growing challenge for Kyiv's armed forces. Hundreds of psychotherapists and psychiatrists are supporting veterans suffering from stress and combat fatigue. Mind you, all of this is happening amid a cold winter.
Factory worker turned soldier DJ is describing the toll that nightmares and broken sleep are taking on his mental health. His experience is part of a growing challenge for Ukraine's exhausted army as it seeks to hold at bay its much larger Russian enemy. Now, in a makeshift classroom in the east of the country, psychotherapist Ol Hukovsky is running sessions for combat veterans like DJ on how to cope with the stress of war, especially during extended periods at the front.
45 days, it's a critical period when soldier can stay and, let's say, have a chance to stay mental healthy. So after 45s, almost everyone will be broken in a way. And we have situation when they can be a very long time, much longer. And they are getting a lot of concussions, a lot of combat fatigue is very prevalent, I would say.
Many of those fighting joined as volunteers with limited preparation. Reuters spoke to 4 soldiers undergoing treatment. They spoke of exhaustion, stress, anxiety, fear, and guilt, but also of camaraderie and a sense of obligation to hurry back to fight. Finn says he eventually recognized that he needed help.
I was told that I needed some rest, some medical treatment. I said that I was good and that they were making up things. I did not feel that way. But after the last mission, I started feeling that I could not bear it anymore. The shelling was especially difficult. I knew that I was on the brink of having a breakdown.
While many soldiers who seek psychological support return to battle after short breaks, other more serious cases are sent to rehabilitation points away from the front. Psychotherapist Ol Hukovsky again.
Some people, they can need longer treatment, for example. So usually it's a long process. It's not like, okay, today you feel not okay, go home. Usually it's a long process because we need all people we can keep in our army.
Ukraine's armed forces declined to answer questions on how many soldiers had been treated for psychological conditions since the start of the invasion. Such details are often treated as military secrets.
And well, it seems like protesters set a train ablaze in Bangladesh, killing at least 4 people amid a countrywide strike called by the opposition to press its demand for the government to resign ahead of an election next month. Details about the number of passengers on the train from Netrakona heading to Dhaka were not immediately available. Meanwhile, police reported that flames were spotted by passengers near the capital as the train approached its destination in Dhaka. The incident was the latest strife that was sparked by anti-government protests in which dozens of buses and vehicles have been set on fire, with at least 6 people that were killed since the October 28th, when an opposition rally turned violent. And shifting our focus from Bangladesh to Congo in Africa, where the Democratic Republic of Congo's eastern city of Goma and the voters over there faced long queues outside polling stations on Wednesday as they participated in a general election. Take a look at that. The December 20 polls come after an election marked by a contentious campaign involving allegations of impending fraud, electoral violence, and logistical challenges. Now, the CENI election, the CENI election commission, pledged a free and fair vote, but independent observers and critics highlight irregularities that could undermine result legitimacy. With 44 million registered voters, concerns arise about reaching remote areas due to bad roads and insecurity. President Felix Tshisekedi seeks a second term amid competition from around 24 opposition challengers in the mineral-rich yet poverty-stricken nation of Congo. Time for me to slip into a quick commercial break here, ladies and gentlemen. Lots more coming right on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Bangalore traffic is an example of something that has gone wrong with our system.
We have more than 50 flyovers in Bangalore city. If flyover is a solution to traffic problem, Bangalore should not have traffic problem.
According to TomTom Traffic Index 2022, Bangalore is ranked as the second worst city in the world when it comes to traffic.
The speed limit at the ORR is 80 kilometers per hour, but our vehicle has only moved 10 kilometers per hour.
What Bangalore needs is a surgery, but what we have been offered repeatedly are band-aids.
Only on the world's first news OTT. News 9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
Well, if you haven't already downloaded the News 9 Plus application, I highly urge all the viewers to go on and do some nuanced and perspective-based documentaries in the time that you have. Meanwhile, shifting our focus to the 75th day of the West Asian conflict between Israel and Hamas, latest from the war front.
The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
It's the 75th day of the West Asian conflict between Israel and Hamas. Before we expand the stories, let's get you the latest update from the war front on your screens. Now, the United Nations Security Council is expected to vote today on a bid to boost aid deliveries to Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, Israeli military continues to advance in the southern half of the Gaza Strip. This coming across by the Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, who is also the chief spokesman of the Israeli Defense Forces. Meanwhile, according to IDF and Daniel Hagari's statements, around 1,500 tunnel shafts and underground passages have been discovered across the Gaza Strip. This even as the IDF denies responsibility for the death of 2 women at a Gaza church complex. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he has reiterated his commitment to bringing back all the Israeli hostages. A lot of dissent and anger back in Tel Aviv at home. Israeli ground operations are going to expand to additional areas. This coming across from the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Now, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, the Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital in Gaza has completely run out of service, even as the death toll now mounts and surges beyond the 20,000 figure. Almost 8,000 of them youngsters and children. That's the number and that's the figure of Palestinians that have been killed in the war since the 7th of October. Rescuers were seen digging through the rubble in an attempt to find survivors and recover bodies or any kind of salvageable items after Israeli strikes demolished 3 houses in Rafah in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Gaza's health officials reported that at least 20 people were killed in the attack. Drone visuals of the latest Israeli strikes in Rafah, ladies and gentlemen. At least 20 people were killed in the attacks, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. People continue to dig deep, search for their loved ones or mortal remains or any kind of salvageable items from these 3 houses that were attacked. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, the United Nations officials expressed anger and disbelief about the situation in Gaza hospitals, where injured individuals lacked basic supplies and children recovering from amputations are being killed in the ongoing conflict. Most of Gaza's hospitals remain not operational due to damage from attacks, the Israeli raids, and a shortage of fuel and the stuff. The ones still open are under increasing pressure, facing both strikes and a growing influx of sick and injured patients.
Truly, I'm furious. I'm furious that those with power shrug as the humanitarian nightmares unleashed on 1 million children. I'm furious that children who are recovering from amputations in hospitals are then killed in those hospitals. I'm furious that there are more children hiding as we speak somewhere who will no doubt be hit and have amputations in the coming days. I'm furious that of all the senseless attacks, the only admittance of dumb is the use of dumb bombs. I'm furious that disease is as well armed as the warring parties, but it gets absolutely no attention. I'm furious, as I said, that little boy of a friend I made is now worryingly sick and they have only hope and dirty water. Lisa, I'm furious that Christmas is likely going to bring increased savagery in attacks as the world is distracted with its own, love and goodwill. I'm furious that now we're at 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 children killed and they're becoming statistics and not stories. I'm furious that the, hypocrisy is crushing empathy. And to a degree, I'm furious at myself for not being able to do more.
The people in the hospitals, yes, they need everything. They need medical supplies, but what they ask for first is food and water. The very basics. They do not have them. One of my colleagues described people lying on the floor in severe pain, in agony, but they weren't asking for pain relief, they were asking for water. That it's beyond belief that the world is allowing this to continue. I can only concur with James. I haven't been there, but just what I'm seeing and hearing from my colleagues is something that it's unconscionable that the world allows this to continue.
Dirty water and hope. That's all that's left for the Palestinians, the civilians rather, in the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, United States' Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, he revealed that the United States was leading a multinational operation, an operation to safeguard commerce in the Red Sea as attacks by Iran-backed Yemeni Houthi terrorists forced more major shipping companies to reroute. Mr. Austin, who was on a trip to Bahrain, home to the U.S. Navy's headquarters in the Middle East, said that Britain, Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles and Spain were among nations involved in the Red Sea security operation. The group will conduct joint patrols in the southern Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden.
The lifeblood of the rules-based international order is actually seawater. All countries have the right to move freely and lawfully in international waters. But that foundational global right is under new threat today from the totally unacceptable attacks on merchant vessels by the Houthis in Yemen. So this morning, we've launched Operation Prosperity Guardian under the umbrella of Combined Maritime Forces and under the leadership of Task Force 153. That operation is bringing together more than a dozen countries from around the world to conduct joint patrols in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden.
Now, the ongoing global impact of Houthi attacks on a crucial sea route for oil and fuel shipments is escalating. Experts warn that these attacks could elevate oil prices and insurance premiums, triggering inflations. Major oil and shipping companies are adjusting routes or halting trade, causing disruptions surpassing the Suez Canal crisis. Now, this situation poses greater risks than the 2021 blockade. To evade these attacks, ships may opt for a longer Cape of Good Hope route, extending journeys by 3,500 nautical miles and about 10 extra days. Insurance costs are surging, soaring from 0.07% to 0.5 to 0.7% of a ship's value due to heightened risks in these particular zones. But there is a silver lining here as well, because volunteers in Khan Yunis are working with children traumatized by Israeli bombardments and the ground offensive in the Palestinian enclave. Children residing in shelters express living in fear, with the sounds of drones and explosions keeping them awake at night. Dalaya Alvea, a volunteer in psychology and entertainment, mentions that she is attempting to alleviate the children's negative feelings through play at the Jenin School in Khan Yunis. And well, shifting our focus here, cutting across to a quick commercial break. Lots more will continue right on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
ChatGPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today? All of us have to think about unique and distinctive value addition that cannot be automated or repeated or replaced by a machine.
ChatGPT may kill many companies. A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.
Dark Side of the Boom. Streaming now.
It was my 14th birthday.
On birthday, daughter waits
or missing father.
He was carrying a cake for his daughter.
49-year-old Birmingham-based
Indian diplomat vanishes.
He was grabbed and bundled into a car by 4 assailants.
KLA claims responsibility demands Kashmiri separatists.
Maqbool Bhatt's release.
Goli maro, aur phek do.
And within 3 days, they shot him dead.
Abducted diplomat.
Found murdered in Leicestershire.
I said, who ordered to kill him? To me, he said, yes, I ordered it.
And he never came home.
Stop searching, start streaming. Download the world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा.
There's certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Welcome back. You're watching News 9 Live. Now, a magnitude 6.2 earthquake struck China's rural northwest on Tuesday, causing the collapse and destruction of homes and buildings in the northern edge of the Qinghai Tibetan Plateau. State media reported at least 127 deaths, with footage showing structures reduced to rubble and mudslides covering roads and buildings. A village in the northwest of China was half buried in silt after the magnitude 6.2 earthquake triggered a landslide, covering homes and trapping residents inside. Rescue efforts were hampered by the high altitude and the cold weather, with the quake hitting Gansu province at about 11:59 p.m. local time on Monday. Authorities have swiftly mobilized an array of emergency responses after the quake wrecked roads and the infrastructure near it. But rescue work has proved challenging in the sub-zero temperatures, with most of China grappling with below freezing conditions after a powerful cold wave that swept across the country. Well, now the 6.2 magnitude earthquake that killed over 127 people in China damaged more than 1,55,000 homes in the northwestern province of Gansu. Residents of Gansu province were forced to take shelter in tents as most of the houses had already crumbled or were at the risk of complete collapse. This, in the meantime, these makeshift tents and rescue operations, these relief sectors have been put up, as put out by the state broadcasting CCTV, where you can see the relief operatives working tirelessly to set up tent cities for all those that have been evacuated from the Gansu province. Earthquakes, seismology and volcanic eruptions, they do go hand in hand. And despite the power of Iceland's latest Reykjanes eruption that decreased on Tuesday, nature was still putting on a show. Why? Well, watch out for yourself.
Despite the power of Iceland's Reykjanes eruption decreasing on Tuesday, nature was still putting on a show. The 2.5 mile long fissure continuing to spew lava up to 330 feet into the air. The evacuated town of Grindavik lies under 2 miles away, but volcanologist Dave McGarvey told Reuters the lava flow should avoid the area.
At the moment, it's not, one can't be certain where the lava is going to flow, but it looks like it will go more towards the north and west and perhaps the south and east. And those are good directions for the town of Grindavik.
Recent inactivity had raised hopes the 4,000 residents might return home. Hans Vera, a Belgian who has lived in Iceland since 1999, isn't so sure now.
Although it's just erupting in the north part of it, they probably think there's a chance that it opens up somewhere else and then it's going to be closer to Grindavik. So I don't see that in the near future they will let people get close to Grindavik. So we are back in the waiting game.
This Icelandic Coast Guard flight over the ripped landscape just hours after it burst the Earth's surface shows lava fountains sending magma and smoke hundreds of feet into the air. Officials worry gas pollution could spread to the capital Reykjavik late on Tuesday evening or Wednesday morning.
So it's very early days yet, but I think over the next 2 or 3 days, things will become much clearer.
In 2010, ash clouds from eruptions at the Eyjafjallajökull volcano in the south of Iceland spread over large parts of Europe, grounding tens of thousands of flights in Europe and beyond. But experts say this time limited ash is being released, quelling fears of a repeat, with no disruption so far. These tourists already making the most of the new natural wonder.
It's a once in a lifetime for us, so we don't want to miss that.
Scientists say seismic activity could continue for several months.
Next up, story coming in from the domain of artificial intelligence and digital technology. Google's Alphabet has settled the antitrust case by agreeing to pay $700 million and open up competition in its Play App Store. The terms were revealed in a San Francisco federal court, outlining the agreement with the U.S. states and the consumers. Take a look at this next report.
People in the US could be in line for a payout from Google over its App Store. The tech giant has agreed to pay $700 million to settle an antitrust case brought by states and consumers. Eligible users will get at least $2 each, and maybe more depending on how much they used the Play Store. Google was accused of overcharging consumers through unlawful restrictions on the distribution of apps on Android devices. It was also accused of imposing unnecessary fees on in-app transactions. The firm hasn't admitted any wrongdoing as part of the settlement. Utah and other states first announced the deal in September, but the terms were kept secret pending the outcome of a related suit brought by the maker of the Fortnite video game. A California jury last week ruled against Google in that case too. The company says it is now working to make it easier for consumers to use alternative methods for in-app purchases. As part of the settlement, it will also make it simpler for people to download apps directly from developers. Lawyers for the states said the agreement would bring meaningful relief for consumers.
Well, shifting our focus to domestic stories and political developments that are taking shape back at home. And in an exclusive interview to the Financial Times, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has for the first time responded to allegations of an Indian plot to assassinate Khalistani terrorist Gurpatwant Singh Pannun in the United States. Now, the Prime Minister suggested that he will quote-unquote look into any evidence over the assassination plot, but also stated that a quote-unquote few incidents cannot derail the US-India ties. He sought to play down the diplomatic impact of the US indictment last month, linking to the Indian official to the attempted plot. But first, let's take a look at some of the excerpts from this exclusive interview. Now, the Prime Minister went on to say that if someone gives us any information, we will definitely look into it. He suggested that if a citizen of ours has done something wrong, something good, something bad, then we are ready to look into it, and it's not going to be a case of not batting an eyelid. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister said that our commitment is to the rule of law. Now, Pannun, an American and Canadian citizen, has been advocating violence against India, including Air India and the Parliament. Now, Prime Minister Modi said that India was, quote-unquote, deeply concerned about the activities of certain extremist groups that were based overseas. He went on to add that these elements, under the guise of freedom of expression, have engaged in intimidation and have incited violence. The Prime Minister noted that there is strong bipartisan support in the United States for the strengthening of bilateral relationship, which is a clear indicator of a mature and stable partnership between India and the United States. Now, security and counterterrorism, the Prime Minister said. Security and counterterrorism cooperation has been a key component of our partnership. He also added that I don't think it is appropriate to link a few incidents with diplomatic relations between the two countries. And COVID-19, that's also one of the focus of News 9, ladies and gentlemen. And in response to the surge in the COVID-19 cases and the detection of the new JN.1 variant in several parts of India, Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia conducted a high-level review meeting with state counterparts. Now, this comes amid the World Health Organization's Tuesday statement that classified the JN.1 coronavirus strain as a variant of interest, although it also continued to say that the current evidence shows risk to public health was currently low at the moment. Meanwhile, our focus, because at the meet, Mansukh Mandavia told his counterparts that it is time to work together in a quote-unquote whole of government approach, expressing that while we need to be alert, there is no need to panic. Mansukh Mandavia also spoke about the importance of being prepared by conducting drills, increasing surveillance and maintaining effective communication. He also assured the centre's support to all the states. Now, India's health ministry issued an advisory to all states and union territories, emphasizing the need for heightened vigilance as the festive season approaches. States were urged to implement public health measures, emphasizing respiratory hygiene. The advisory also stressed effective compliance with the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare operational guidelines for the revised COVID-19 surveillance strategy that has been provided. You can check the same on their website as well. Meanwhile, as of Wednesday, India had over 2,300 cases. Kerala reported 2,041 total cases, whilst Tamil Nadu has reported 77. Maharashtra saw cases rise to the 35 number mark, and Karnataka had 79 COVID cases. Meanwhile, Telangana reported 9 and Puducherry reported 20 cases of COVID-19, whilst Delhi has 4 active cases at the moment and Gujarat has 12. Punjab reported about 5 and Goa at the moment reports 23 COVID cases, another one of those places that tourists throng to during the New Year's time. Madhya Pradesh, in central India and Jharkhand have 2 active COVID-19 cases each. The states with the lowest COVID cases are Jammu and Kashmir and Uttar Pradesh with 1 case each at the moment. Now, Kerala's Health Minister Veena George had earlier called a high-level meeting to address the COVID-19 surge, with about over 85% of the cases in the country originating from the state of Kerala. A recent mock drill also assessed hospital preparedness, revealing available oxygen and ICU beds at disposal. The focus will now be on areas like Kochi and Thiruvananthapuram that are experiencing a rise in the cases particularly. The meeting emphasized increased testing for symptomatic individuals, and despite the 10 COVID-related deaths this month alone in the state of Kerala, the Minister Veena George assured ample medicine and equipment stock. And even as one South Indian state is reeling under the effects of COVID-19, another South Indian state is reeling under the effect of Cyclone Migjon, because after the cyclone hit Chennai and nearby areas, now 4 southern districts of Tamil Nadu, particularly Tirunelveli and Tuticorin, are grappling with heavy rain unleashed by the cyclonic circulation. Take a look at this. The Tamil Nadu government, along with armed forces, is undertaking rescue operations for stranded residents as the downpour wreaks havoc. The state labelled the rainfall as unprecedented and enlisted IAAF choppers, the Indian Air Force that has been mobilized to airdrop relief materials in Tirunelveli. Tuticorin's Kayalapattinam, it saw a historic 95 centimeter rainfall within a span of just 24 hours, leading to overflowing rivers and channels. Rescue and relief materials that is being dropped in by the IAF to all the struck residents in the southern districts of Tamil Nadu. Major reservoirs in the region, in particular in the Kayalapattinam area, are at capacity due to torrential rains in the catchment areas. Meanwhile, Tamil Nadu Governor Arun Ravi, he chaired a review meeting with senior officials from the central agencies and armed forces, focusing on the assessment of the flood situation in the southern districts. Particularly, the governor directed authorities to mobilize maximum resources for rescue and relief operations. Simultaneously, the Chief Minister, he visited Tuticorin as well, and his assessment aims at evaluating the ongoing rescue efforts and assesses the damage caused by the rain and floods in southern districts, including Tuticorin and Tirunelveli. Even as we're looking at some of those rescue operation visuals, and kudos to the team of the Indian Air Force that are currently in these visuals, as you can see on your screens, evacuating and rescuing a pregnant woman. Now, the UP cabinet has sanctioned a series of relief measures, including a COVID zero period to be extended to developers based on recommendations from an expert committee led by former Niti Aayog CEO Amitabh Kant. Now, the aim of this move is to revitalize stalled real estate projects in the state. The committee, citing the Indian Banks Association, identified 2.4 lakh stressed housing units, with the majority located in Noida and Greater Noida. The zero-period relief for realtors is substantial, wiping out nearly 4 years of interest and penalties on dues owed to the government for allocated land. The Kant committee proposed 2 zero-period waivers, one for the COVID pandemic from March 2020 to March 2022, and another from August 2013 to June 2015 during the National Green Tribunal's construction work stoppage around the Okla Bird Sanctuary until the eco-sensitive zone was notified. But what are the key measures? Take a look at that. Builders are going to benefit from a 46-month zero period that erases almost 4 years of interest. Almost 4 years of interest, ladies and gentlemen. Registries can be unlocked through a rescheduling plan as well, requiring partial payment upfront. That's the criteria. Unfinished projects that are in need of funds will be under the oversight of the RERA. The introduction of a co-developer policy allows companies to inject funds into projects and bring them to completion. Meanwhile, home buyers, what's happening on that front? Certain flat owners may witness the processing of their flat registries as they have already cleared dues with the builders. Meanwhile, other buyers might face delays until construction completion, allowing builders to resume projects with reduced financial burdens. For some, resolution may hinge on court case outcomes, or resolution professionals involved in the NCLT cases may need to identify new developers. And that's all the time we have for you in this edition of Top Stories. Meanwhile, up next, watch News 9 Plus's in-depth analysis of the rise in illegal immigration from India to abroad. Many thanks for watching. Keep watching News 9 Live.